Germany's decision to impose border controls raises migrants' anxiety. Despite a new outbreak in Sierra Leone, some officials are optimistic in the fight against Ebola. And a new way to keep up with the Kardashians in cyberspace. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Germany's decision to impose border controls effectively suspended the Schengen Agreement, which means more anxiety for the more than 1,000 migrants who made it into the country on Monday. German police have begun implementing the new restrictions, checking documents of passengers on trains and searching cars at the Austrian border. VOA Europe correspondent Luis Ramirez traveled from Munich, where most migrants have been heading to a small town on Germany's border with Austria.
Germany is where most migrants want to be at the end of a month-long journey. But for those arriving aboard this train from Budapest, this German border town is as far as they will go for now. German police escort them from the train and put them in a holding area to await registration. Syrian refugees who spoke with us asked us not to show their faces.
I don't know why we get off the train. They told us to come and do a check for health, give us food, and did not move after that. I do not know what will happen the next day. Where we are going now, I do not know.
German police have mobilized at least 800 federal police officers to Germany's border with Austria to implement new border controls.
The biggest challenge is logistics. We have to get people to the buses in an organised way, as well as giving them food tonight. We have to accommodate them for the process of registration and get them to the other refugee centres throughout Germany.
Until now, police did not regularly check documents of those aboard international trains like this one. But this is a new reality. And for migrants, it means confusion and more anxiety.
Somebody told me that Germany had closed the border. We decided that our chances would not be good by train, so we decided to come here walking. We saw a river, removed our vestments, and swam.
German authorities are also searching cars at the border. Their aim, in part, is to relieve pressure on Munich, until now the main entry point for the migrants. For the first time in days, Munich's central train station has almost no refugees coming through. Volunteers stand around and a sign asks for donations to be taken elsewhere. With Germany and other nations of Europe changing their policy so quickly, there is fear among many of the refugees and migrants that they could be rounded up and deported. Refugee centers, like the one here at Munich's central train station, is the last place many of them would want to be. Luis Ramirez, VOA News, Munich.
Hungary on Tuesday declared a state of emergency in 2 southern counties as part of a crackdown on migrants trying to reach the European Union. Just across the Hungarian border from Serbia, VOA's Ayesha Tanzim found a group of Afghan migrants who had crossed the border illegally, but then turned themselves in out of hunger and desperation.
This group of Afghan refugees met the VOA team at the side of a road in a border town about 10 to 12 kilometers from the Hungarian-Serbian border. They told us they have been hungry for 3 days without food and water. They told us they crossed the border illegally today. They were following somebody else's direction and did not know where the legal crossing was. And now they were so desperate because nobody understood their language and they did not know what to do that they were flagging police cars in order to hand themselves over. Now, as you can see, the police has them sitting at the side of the road and we are being told that they will be sent back to Serbia. Ayesha Tanzim, VOA News, Hungarian border.
Well, staying in Europe, French President François Hollande welcomed Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari to Paris on Monday to discuss the fight against global terrorism. President Hollande said that French airstrikes against Islamic State militants in Syria will be necessary. During a joint news conference with Mr. Buhari, Mr. Hollande noted that France is part of the coalition in Iraq and that his nation has shown its determination in the operations it runs in the Western African region. Paris has also been heavily engaged in the fight against al-Qaeda militants in West Africa and has been providing logistical support and intelligence to Nigeria and neighboring states combating Boko Haram militants.
Mais Boko Haram est lié, nous le savons, à Daesh Boko Haram is linked to Daesh, as we know, and receives aid and support from this group. Fighting against Boko Haram is fighting against Daesh. It is no longer possible to distinguish terrorism from regions. It's the same terrorism inspired by the same death ideology, and that's the reason why France has for a long time been intervening in Mali by supporting countries of the Lake Chad region who started the fight against terrorism and against Daesh.
President Buhari thanked France for its support in the battle against Boko Haram. He said he hoped that the terrorist group could be eliminated by next May when countries of the Lake Chad Commission meet again. Now, for some perspective on the visit, what that visit means for Nigeria, Kabir Mato, a professor of political science at Abuja University, joins me on the phone from Abuja. Professor Mato, welcome to Africa 54.
Yeah, very much.
Yes, and now how is this visit being seen and analyzed in Nigeria? How important is it?
Well, I think the visit is of strategic importance to Nigeria if we take into consideration the strategic nature of France in Africa's international relations. Nigeria is, though a former colony of Britain, is surrounded throughout its borders by African countries that were colonized by France. And the solidarity between France and its colonial peoples in Africa seems to be very strong. And I think it is in this light that the President of France summoned a security summit sometimes last year to discuss the growing, insurrection within the sub-region in Cameroon, in Chad, in Niger Republic, and all other places, that were former colonial areas of France, were also deeply affected, in as much as the much of the insurrection was in the northeastern part of Nigeria, but the other countries also were, literally affected. So the visit is strategic, it's important, especially that this administration, since its, arrival, has done so much in waging war against insurgency, and the visible achievements that seem to be on ground today suggest that there is apparent victory along the way. So all hands must be on deck.
Professor, in very specific terms, what kind of help can France give to Nigeria that it hasn't been receiving from all the other allies?
Well, the fact of the matter is that, like many other countries, that are industrially developed, I think France could offer a lot of assistance there, especially to those countries around Nigeria where the insurrection is also, very intensive, by providing, military hardware, military assistance, and even in terms of personnel, training of the military personnel that will deal with the insurgency and other security agencies. I think France can offer in a lot.
All right. Thank you, Professor, for your insights there. Kabir Mato is Professor of Political Science at Abuja University. Now, in the United States, massive wildfires are ravaging the drought-ridden state of California. The governor has declared a state of emergency for areas north of the winemaking region, Napa Valley, where flames have devoured nearly half of a small town and thousands have been forced to flee their homes. VOA's Laritza Hoke has a report.
Firefighters in California are trying to contain the fiercest wildfires they have seen in decades. The blazes have charred an area of more than 40,000 hectares and destroyed hundreds of homes and commercial structures. Entire neighborhoods were wiped out within hours over the past weekend in Middletown, north of the capital, Sacramento. Some residents barely escaped.
It was a wall of fire behind us when we left. Scariest thing ever. I'm still in shock.
Authorities say the fires are hard to contain because winds have spread them in many different directions, and the smoke has blocked access to aircraft.
It feels like the inversion layer might lift, and we'll get that smoke out of here. But on the flip side, when the smoke leaves, we're talking about sunlight and heat that could promote the fire as well.
4 firefighters had to be hospitalized for second-degree burns. California Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in the affected areas. He said the state's wildfires are worse than ever because the summer temperatures are rising.
When combined with years of drought, means that the conditions are worse. they're drier, and therefore these fires are acting more aggressively, more unpredictably.
Several major fires are burning in California, but two, the Valley Fire, about 160 kilometers west of Sacramento, and the Butte Fire, about 160 kilometers to the east, have been particularly damaging over the past week. There is little hope that the fires will die down soon, and the recovery is expected to take longer than usual because of damage to the infrastructure and water and electrical supply systems. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover? Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. And let me hear from you. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vincent Makori. Coming up, the World Health Organization says it is possible to have 0 cases of Ebola by the end of 2015. Stay with us.
This is Green Beat for a healthier planet.
It's a simple idea, really.
So you bring your food to the boil on a normal fire, and then you take the food off the fire, put it into the bag, and it continues to cook for 8 to 12 hours.
Sarah Collins is the founder of Wonder Bag, a cooking system that she says cuts down on harmful fumes from open fires and makes the job of cooking a lot easier, with less wood to collect and haul home. But Collins says Wonder Bag provides more than just a way to cook.
What we are seeing is huge changes in the economic status and the business acumen of women who are selling Wonder Bags, also saving time and being able to sell other things.
Since it cuts down on electricity use, Collins says the Wonder Bag has gained attention across the globe, even in the West, where you can find it for sale on the internet. I'm Rebecca Ward for VOA's Green Beat.
Well, it's time now for Tuesday Business Report to get a sense of what is going on in the global markets. We're joined live from our New York studio by Africa 54's Alexis Christophorous. Hello, Alexis. Welcome back.
Hello, thanks very much, Vincent. Well, global markets appear to be in a holding pattern as investors wait for the Federal Reserve's decision on interest rates this Thursday. Despite a moderately growing U.S. economy, some analysts believe the Fed may hold off on raising rates until at least December, if not early next year, mostly because of the slowing Chinese economy and turmoil in global markets. In Africa, Nigeria's consumer inflation inched up 0.1% in August to 9.3%. Nigeria's inflation rate rose above the central bank's upper limit of 9% back in June and is now at the highest level in 2.5 years. Africa's biggest oil producer has been hit hard by the slump in global crude prices, which has sent the naira spiraling. The central bank has imposed increasingly stringent foreign exchange measures to prop up the naira, but investors appear to be losing confidence. Just last week, J.P. Morgan Chase said it would drop Nigeria from its influential emerging market bonds index because of foreign exchange controls. Vincent?
Yes, now, Alexis, you have new predictions on economic growth for Sierra Leone?
That's right. Economic output in Sierra Leone will probably contract 22% this year as its mining and agricultural industries face the dual pressures of recovering from an Ebola outbreak and a commodity price slump. 2 years ago, before the Ebola outbreak, the country was among the fastest growing economies in Africa, expanding at more than 20% because of exports of iron ore, which is used to make steel. Sierra Leone's head of economic and labor statistics predicts economic growth is expected to recover next year to 1%, provided that agriculture and iron ore ramp up again. Vincent?
Now going east, looks like some good news for Kenya's railway system.
That's right. It looks like Kenya's Chinese-built railway is actually ahead of schedule. The chairman of Kenya Railways says the tracks for a new, faster railway linking the Indian Ocean port of Mombasa to Kenya's capital will be laid down by the end of next year, and it's slated to open for commercial traffic in June of 2017. The goal is to extend that railway to Uganda and other landlocked states. It aims to cut the cost of transport and boost trade by replacing a narrow gauge line that currently has slower top speeds. Vincent?
That would mean a lot. In fact, it will help the entire region. Thanks a lot, Alexis, for your fabulous reporting there. Welcome back. Well, Alexis Christophorus of Africa 54 reporting live from New York. Well, it's time now for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Vincent. Aid agencies are increasing efforts to prevent new cases of malnutrition in South Sudan. Observers say months of fighting and deepening food shortages have left many civilians with nothing to eat in parts of the country. Agencies say the rates of global acute malnutrition are still alarmingly high, well above the emergency threshold of 15% in most parts of the country. UNICEF and the World Food Programme have launched a joint nutrition response plan covering all states in South Sudan. Both agencies and their partners will assist over 2 million people, including children, pregnant women, and new mothers, receive treatment and prevention of acute malnutrition in the country until May 2016.
We are committed to provide services across South Sudan, but particularly focusing in the 3 conflict states because the rates are so high, as well as in states which have very, very high rates of malnutrition.
Now to Ebola. The World Health Organization says it is possible to have 0 cases of Ebola by the end of 2015. However, recent cases of Ebola are still raising concerns about ending Ebola once and for all in West Africa. The World Health Organization says it is possible to have 0 cases of Ebola by the end of this year. Dr. Bruce Aylward is Assistant Director General of the WHO.
Our goal is 0 transmission in the human population, and I think that remains very possible within 2015.
However, the WHO says the risk of reappearances of the disease remain in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Tight surveillance and tracing contacts of infected people remain crucial.
Remember, for many countries, they're thinking, or ministries or health facilities, is like, oh, we hit 0, let's go do all the other things that we haven't been doing. So phase 3 is really all about how to prioritize those things and make sure they don't get dropped and that any residual risk is managed.
Over 11,000 people have died in West Africa since the worst Ebola epidemic on record began over 18 months ago. Liberia has been hardest hit with over 4,800 deaths. The country has also had the most success in bringing the outbreak under control. Liberia was declared Ebola-free in May, but a fresh cluster of cases appeared nearly 2 months later. The country's last case was subsequently discharged on July 23. Liberia was recently declared free of the Ebola virus for a second time and has entered a 90-day period of heightened surveillance.
Today, the World Health Organization declares Liberia free of Ebola virus transmission in the human population.
Today is a day to celebrate, but we must not forget what we have learned. As long as there is one person with Ebola in our region, Ebola is still a threat. The Ministry of Health and its partners will continue monitoring Liberia's borders and rebuilding the healthcare system to ensure that Liberians remain safe. Measures also have been taken to improve surveillance and monitoring in the 15 counties for Ebola and other diseases.
Scientists say sexual transmission is the most likely explanation for the resurgence in Liberia, since the virus can live on in semen beyond the usual 21-day incubation period. The World Health Organization advises that all male survivors should be tested 3 months after the onset of symptoms and then monthly until they know they have no risk of passing on the virus through their semen. Guinea and Sierra Leone are still struggling to end their outbreaks. The latest flare-up in a village on the northern border of Sierra Leone followed the death of a 67-year-old woman late last month. Dr. Aylward says vigilance needs to be maintained in all 3 countries. Health authorities in Sierra Leone quarantined hundreds of people in northern Sierra Leone on Monday after a teenage girl died of Ebola on Sunday. Joining us now on the phone from Freetown, Sierra Leone, is Natalie Van Heesel, Advocacy Manager and Liaison Officer for Doctors Without Borders, MSF Sierra Leone. Ms. Van Heesel, welcome to Africa 54.
Hello.
Hello. Please tell us about the current situation in northern Sierra Leone. What is happening right now?
Well, the response is happening in Bombali district, where the current case has appeared. At the moment, there are many people put into quarantine, but in any case, it's critical to investigate each case and identify the persons that had contact and are now at high risk. And then quarantine measures, they should be kept to a minimum.
Now, the case of the teenage girl who died on Sunday is said to be an apparent case of sexual transmission. What do we know about that?
The exposure of this new case is still under investigation, so we cannot just assume sexual transmission. It is also highly possible that some cases have been missed. Many districts do not report on sick patients now. We are in the middle of a malaria season, and malaria symptoms, they resemble Ebola. So we should see more reports coming in of people that are sick.
So at this point, what are the priorities? Contact tracing, trying to determine what the infection, where the infection came from? What can you tell us about that?
Well, first of all, continued vigilance is necessary until the very end of the outbreak. So a strong surveillance and reporting of cases is critical so that the transmission can be broken. Everybody needs to keep up efforts until we get to and maintain 0 cases for 42 plus 90 days.
There was the case of an older woman who died a few days ago, and that case has nothing to do with the teenager, obviously.
I haven't heard about this case. I have no news on that.
Okay, so what can you tell us in terms of what MSF is doing to contain this current outbreak?
Well, at this moment, MSF rapid response teams, they have been deployed to help the authorities contain the outbreak. And they are in Bombali district responding with other partners.
So you are presently in Freetown. What can you tell us in terms of some of the measures that are in place to ensure that the outbreak doesn't really spread in the capital city and other cities surrounding it?
Well, there is a coordinated response, and all partners are participating in this. And yeah, so the measures that are there, the case investigation needs to be very thorough, then all the contacts need to be traced so that we can identify high-risk and low-risk contacts, and these are then being monitored. If people are suspected, they are being transferred to the Ebola treatment unit, and they are tested there. So this way we can break the transmission.
Okay, Ms. Van Giesel, thank you so much for joining us. And that was Nathalie Van Giesel. She's Advocacy Manager and Liaison Officer with Médecins Sans Frontières in Sierra Leone. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore. Be sure to watch Lenore Madu's Health Reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a Terminator star Arnold Schwarzenegger set to replace Donald Trump as host of NBC's reality TV show, The Celebrity Apprentice. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Guinea, the UN envoy appeals for restraint among candidates in the upcoming October vote, with the opposition saying it has not ruled out a boycott. In Nigeria, 3 boys, 2 girls, and a teacher were killed after a primary school collapsed in a town near Jos in the central part of the country. In Niger, the United Nations says child and juvenile mortality is on decline, falling about 40% between 2006 and 2012. Finally, in Zambia, a Chinese-owned mine closes down operations, sending over 1,600 workers on forced leave. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Terminator star Arnold Schwarzenegger will be the new host of NBC's reality TV show, The Celebrity Apprentice. He replaces Donald Trump, who quit the show to run for U.S. president. Schwarzenegger returned to movie making after ending his second term as California governor in 2011. He will take over when the show returns in the 2016-2017 season. NBC says Schwarzenegger had ideas for a fresh take on the show, in which celebrities compete with each other on business tasks while raising money for charities. Next up, a taste of the future at a Latin America tech event. Welcome to Tech Heaven. Curious souls are stepping into the world of tomorrow at Internet Explorer, covering 5,000 square meters at this exhibition center in Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires. At one stall, players of the popular High Strike game get their scores via an app that sends results and live pictures to their Facebook and Twitter accounts. While tech fans are the key audience, organizers say the gathering is formatted for fun. Digital aficionados can also immerse themselves into a 360-degree dimension and experience virtual reality with a headset. More than 2,000 people attended the first day of the exhibition. And finally, even more ways to keep up with the Kardashians. Kim Kardashian, West, Khloe Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, and Kendall Jenner are now offering fans an even deeper glimpse into their lives by way of new personal media apps and websites. The apps will give paying subscribers access to the girls' behind-the-scenes videos, tutorials, diaries, and tips, and will also enable users to follow their whereabouts, ask them questions, and sign up for events and giveaways. In addition to the apps, the brand new websites will offer a mix of free and exclusive subscriber content. And that's what's trending today. Vincent.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. There's a good chance you have heard this Lady Gaga song. What is Lady Gaga singing about? This conversation will help you understand the phrase.
I am having a hard time knowing what Jane is feeling.
I get what you mean. She has such a poker face. She never shows her emotions.
A poker face is one without expression or emotion. The saying comes from the card game poker, where players don't show any reaction to the cards they are dealt. Sometimes people use poker faces when negotiating a business deal. They want to look strong and not give away emotions. And that's English in a Minute.